I am so excited today. This episode is one that has been building and building and building for quite some time. I'm here with one of my best friends, Bek Antonucci, and we have had this thing going for quite a few weeks now where we're like collabing and we're playing in this energy of like, how much juice can we bring together and share with the world of women really being in their magic, really being embodied in their business, and really, really opening up what is possible for them when they live in their truth and their full aliveness. So I'm so excited to have you here today.
It's going to be so fun, especially coming off the back of the 5 days that not just the back of the 6 weeks we've already spent in Austin together, but the 5 days of embodiment training that we've just been immersed into together. It's going to be a wild ride.
Yes.
This next 60 minutes, strap yourself in.
Embodied business. That's what I wanted to talk about today because, one of the things that we do together is travel the world and help people and all of those things. But we've been like working alongside each other for years now.
Yeah.
Like, our businesses, we support each other in each other's businesses. We've really created such a cohesive space where our lives are so together and we're working so deeply on our own feminine embodiment through the whole process. And that's really what's created our relationship, like if I'm completely honest. And what I wanted to talk about is because we've given, like, on your podcast, for those of you who haven't listened to it yet, go and listen to these two episodes.
We launched a 2-part dynamite episode where we blew some firecrackers up some people's buttholes.
Yeah.
But it was so brilliant, and it's such an incredible episode for any woman that wants to expand in career, pleasure, life, relationship with self, intimacy. It's such a beautiful 2-parter.
Yeah. And like, I think the thing that I was like so juiced up about today is because all of that is possible because of the work that we do around it.
Yeah.
And the last 5 days, just to give everyone a bit of a heads up, we've spent 5 days deeply immersed with our mentors in what it is to really own your muse and be with who you are as a woman on inside. And I'd love to know, like, we've obviously talked about this offline and in our own spaces and those sorts of things, but when you really sit down and think about how that has got nothing to do with business, how much has it opened up for you in the world of business, really tapping into that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for such a long time I've been saying, I'm at 2% of my capacity, I'm at 5% of my capacity, and that's felt really true. Like I know how infinite and capable I am. I know what my skill set is. I know the goodness of my heart. I can see my external world reflect results and great results, but it still doesn't feel like the kind of results that Bek Antonucci could achieve. And as I was feeling into what this was, as I've deepened into the embodiment training, I realized that the hustle culture and the masculine way of doing business and the way that I was taught got me results and could get me far, but it could only get me so far. And I just kept hitting this wall or glass ceiling above my head thinking, well, what is it? Is it more work? Do I double down on the work? Do I do more hours? Because more hours and more work creates more result. And yeah, more hours and more work creates more of some of the result, but it's the embodiment that I feel is a big 95% expansion. That's the 20x. So for me, it's living in integrity with who I desire to be as a woman and seeing those results ripple out in the world, because you can go to someone for a skill set and get skill set kind of results, and you can go to someone for embodiment and then you get embodied results, and they're very different things.
Yeah, and I really want to hone in on this piece, right? Because something that we, our mentors talk about, is like, the strategy is like 20% of it. Like, we're so fucking good at the strategy. Like, it's so dialed in on us because of the way both of us, we talked about this so much, but we had very similar upbringings into business and how we created it. And so it's so easy to default back into that. But that 80%, right? It's like most people confuse it with mindset. And like now when I think about the mindset work, I'm like, it's the gateway and it's great and we need to work on it. But the embodiment piece is such a different aspect.
Yes.
And I really want to speak into that piece because so many people, they confuse the two. They think it's just the same thing. It's really not.
Well, also mindset isn't vulnerable.
Yes.
Mindset work is mindset work. Like,
yeah.
Give me your top 10 steps to creating your successful 6-figure business. Give me the way to disclose with confidence to have my mind-blowing sex with my new boyfriend. Give me the top 5 tips to travel the world and live a freedom lifestyle. Mindset is mindset work.
It's the doing.
It's the doing.
Yeah.
And it's not intimate. It's not vulnerable. It's not brushing up against any edge that we have within. And embodiment, the truth is, if you're not ready to be embodied in that thing, you won't be initiated into it until you're ready. And so you can try and mindset work your way to 7 figures. But if money's like, no, motherfucker, you're not embodied for 7 figures, and you're not going to get your 7 figures. If you're going to mindset work your way into a relationship, you're going to attract a relationship from the mindset. It's basically me and my ex-boyfriend. But embodiment's different.
I love that you said that. One thing I instantly jump to is you know how when people go to launch something and suddenly they start living it out in their life? I used to do this all the time. I'd be like, I remember the first time I launched Embodied Business, I was like, this is going to be so good because it's every area of the woman, right? It's it's business and it's this and it's that. But what I didn't realize that was about to fucking pull out every bit where I wasn't embodied. It was okay, you want to be this, you have to actually physically be it. And that's where I think a lot of people fall short and they don't actually allow success to land because they're not willing to hold that piece of it.
Yeah. I mean, I love the saying, you learn what you get to teach.
Yeah.
And so can you teach what you have not yet learned? Obviously my coaching journey stemmed around the herpes virus, for example. So many women come to me, they've been seeing their psychologist for years, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years, still talking about the same thing that happened 12 years ago and this shame that they're experiencing. Now the therapist, the psychologist, and this is no shade on them, they've got the skills, they've got the resources, they've read the books, they've done the study, they understand from the mind, they comprehend.
Yeah.
But they haven't been through the experience. So the embodiment, that's an entirely different experience. And there is no way to get embodied results from the mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go one deeper with that too, because some people go, oh, but I just got to feel this. And I was having a conversation with a client yesterday and I was like to her, what does it feel like to you? She's like, it feels expansive. I'm like, no. Tell me in the body, what is your body registering? What is happening? What's the signal you're getting? And she struggled so much to articulate that piece because of how much she trained her mind to be like, it's expansive, it's growth, it's this. And they use all these words, but it's still not embodiment. And for me, this was a huge lesson because I was that person. It's so easy to spiritually bypass. And the one thing that I see a lot in the embodiment world, in the spirituality world and stuff like that, it's still that piece where people actually don't understand what it is for the body. And this, I guess, my piece around this is you'll never know yourself fully until you know your body. And people are like, we want to go out there and be all the big spiritual gurus and have all the consciousness, but it's actually your body that's the transmission for all of it. What would you say for someone who is sitting there going, but I just want to be in meditation. I just want to be out. I just want to be in the spaces where it feels really good, but they're not willing to connect into their body.
Well, I would say there's no reason why you can't stay out in the clouds and out in the spiritual world. And if it's working for you, great. But if you're saying I want a different experience and I'm meditating and I'm out in whatever realm that you currently exist in and the results that you desire aren't happening, well, then maybe we get to look at that.
Yeah.
And so it's I'd love to eat chocolate for breakfast, but I also want to have a good body. So, okay, keep eating chocolate for breakfast. And a week later, I want to eat chocolate for breakfast, but I want a good body. Well, you're eating fucking chocolate for breakfast, babe. We kind of know you're not meant to eat chocolate for breakfast. And so even if it's comfortable, and you may think it's comfortable up there because you don't know any different, and you may think it's comfortable up there because it's familiar, and you actually don't know what you don't know. Yeah. So maybe connecting with your body, it may feel unsafe to begin with. It may feel unfamiliar. It may feel uncomfortable. It may feel a ton of things, but it doesn't mean it's going to feel that way forever. It's we all know eating chocolate for breakfast actually wouldn't be that great. But if I've been used to it, if I've been eating crap my entire life and I'm used to sugar, maybe the first thing I think when I wake up in the morning is cereal until I start to eat eggs. And the first few weeks of eating eggs maybe doesn't feel that good. And I go through sugar withdrawals until 3 weeks later, I'm like, oh, I feel healthier. I feel more vibrant. I feel more alive. My brain is focused. I can work out. I feel better in my body. And like, wow, the thing that was hard to begin with that I really didn't want to do, sometimes the thing that we're most resistant to, we get to get really clear. Is this a sovereign no and a boundary? Or is this actually my ego saying, I don't want to move through this? And typically going into it and looking at it and coming out the other side, that's where your breakthrough lies.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to live there forever. You can meditate whenever you want. But if you haven't tried it, you're not getting the results, maybe it's time to eat the eggs.
I love it. I love it. So in saying that, I'm curious with, coming back to the start of our conversation, right? So we've given a bit of a context around the embodiment piece now, and like really, the reason why I'm so big on embodiment for me was because I personally had done all the things that I thought I had to do, and then it clicked when I started doing the bridge and I started working more on somatics and understanding all that. But even this weekend, like I thought I was starting to get all the things about the body, and I was having huge breakthroughs. As you know, you're witnessing some of my deepest like guilts and shames and all that stuff coming up. The one thing that I see a lot of people think is like they think that there's somewhere to get in the body. And the one thing that I've really learned like so much is that it's only ever going to be a continual gateway. Like every time we play in something, it's like, okay, cool, there's something here. And I've actually seen, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, it's like when I open something in my body, it opens something in my business. And for so many, they keep trying to escape the business with the body or the body with the business. And how, like, what's your relationship in terms of when you catch that cycle for yourself of like, oh, I'm going into work mode or I'm going back into the default hustle or something like that? How do you allow yourself to drop back in enough to go, there's just another layer here?
That's a really great question. I think sometimes when I recognize that I'm doing it, I just have to be like, put your phone away, put your email away, close your laptop and go for a swim. Go get cold water on your face, go get cold water on your body. Go, if I'm in Bali, go for a scooter ride, like literally put it down and walk away because trying to force, like my ethos throughout my business, throughout my company is regulated, not rushed.
Yeah.
And so even my teams will say to me, oh my God, I made a mistake and I did it from rushing. And like that reminded me, regulated, not rushed. I have notes everywhere because we're never going to create great result from that. And again, I also don't want to produce from scarcity. So when I notice that I'm in that frantic, I'm going to say hustle for the sake of saying hustle, but hustle energy, typically if I want to know what's underneath it, I can just ask myself, like, what's underneath this right now, Rebecca? What fear is here? It's typically scarcity and there's not enough. And that's why I'm going like, grabby, got to do the work, got to find it. And so typically pulling myself away from that and just, I know that a seed of scarcity or a seed of rush is going to grow a tree or grow a plant of rushing and scarcity, even if it looks great, even if it's a nice tree with nice leaves, if it's got scarcity in the roots, scarcity is what that tree is going to, that's the frequency it's going to live from. And I don't desire a business run from scarcity or from rushing. What about for yourself? What do you do?
Very similar.
Yeah.
Like I will take a moment and just really ask myself, okay, where is my come from right now? And I actually had a moment with one of our mentors, Preston. This was maybe 12 months ago now. I'm not quite sure how long ago. And because it was up again, that energy, the scarcity I was feeling like. And he's like, and like, I've prided. I pretty much pride myself on like how much my business doesn't need me.
Yeah.
But over this like month or so that I was in this cycle, I'd like defaulted back to just overworking, doing all these things. And he's like, you are like coming from the energy that built this right now. And you've done everything that you can to strip that away, but it's still there. So you need to change your model where it's no longer in any scarcity. So there was a couple of things that I had to shift again in the model to make sure that I wasn't bringing that in, because it's what you're talking about, that seed, like it will produce more scarcity. And it's interesting because since I've done that, like I'm so quick to recognize when it's up, but those last little threads, it's like this year, like so much has opened up for me. And so like I say it all the time to my clients, but they don't quite get it until they get it. Like, and I don't think I got it until I got it either. It's like I would much prefer if I've got an hour to do something, I'll spend 15 minutes of that just with myself first. Because I know that next 45 minutes will be so much better than me going, oh, I've got an hour to do this. And I'll like frantically do it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm really big on now. It's like my mornings are so slow because I know if I start my morning slow, the rest of my day moves really freely. And that comes from like I used to get up at 3:30 every morning, train myself before I train my clients and hustle, hustle, hustle. And now I'm like, as much as I want to get up in the morning and exercise because that would be the right thing to do by society standards, I'm like, I actually prefer to train around 11 o'clock because I've got the time and the spaciousness in the morning to do what I need to do and then go and move my body in a way that feels really good. So for me, it's noticing that, have I given myself space?
Yeah.
Because if I don't give myself space, I actually can't feel, because the minute I'm in rush mode, it's like all the energy comes here and it's in my head. And so I have to take that moment to anchor back down.
Yeah, even I go back to Bali this weekend and typically I work at 8:30 a.m. in the morning. And I've just thought 8:30 a.m. used to be like half the day was over by 8:30 a.m. for me back in the day. And now I'm like, no, I'm not going to work out 8:30 a.m. in the morning. I need some slow mornings to connect with myself. I'm done with the rushing and get to the gym and start the day and a million miles an hour. And so I just feel the embodiment piece is inviting us into a new way of being. And embodiment is a forever journey that you're on, which means that you're going to be forever invited into a new way of being. Like there's no there to get to. There's no, I am embodied now. Like you're going to, like, there's always going to be an edge where you can find a place where you're not. And right now for me, the way I used to do business is not the way that the new version of me desires to.
I'm just noticing us both have such croaky voices right now because of like how open we are, like how much work we've done and spoken and all those sorts of things. And I feel like even like maybe 6 months ago or 12 months ago would have been like, no, we can't talk today because we're both tired. We've just come off the back of a retreat. But like, I feel like this is actually that practice of like, how do I just get to show up for where I'm at today, you know?
Yeah, and it's releasing the expectations off women that, we're going to be 100 million. I've done that. I'm 100 million miles an hour all the time. And I don't believe that I have the kind of body that can get to burnout.
Yeah.
But I think that just being tired is more than enough to be like, actually, do I want to keep going this way? And when I'm tired, can I still show up? Like what we think is 50% of our great is still brilliant.
Yeah.
And so like any expectation that we have to be like, we've both been in Austin for 6 weeks. We've done 2 trainings with our teachers. We've done a 5-day embodiment immersion, for the facilitation training we're doing. You're doing all of your content in here. I've done 4 months of podcasting. Like it's been a big 6 weeks and still there's so much magic in what we're sharing right now that women can receive for themselves.
Yeah. And I think that's something to really like play with here as well, because all of that has been from us actually just being and giving it space between it too. Like, sure, some moments have felt higher. However, it's not been from a place of at the cost of myself.
Yeah.
Right. Like I was thinking about it, I was looking through my calendar because I've got other people I'm trying to get in while I'm here. And, you know, I was like really excited and it's really good. And I'm like, oh, I'm actually really busy, but I don't feel busy.
Yeah.
Because I have spaciousness in my body.
Yeah.
And I know like we were having that conversation the other day. You were like, oh yeah, I've got like 3 hours of podcast and then I've got this and then I've got that. And I'm like, are you tired? And you're like, yeah, sure. But it's not like I'm not tired.
Yeah.
Like,
and also it's not doing work that we don't want to do.
yeah.
Like if you sat me in an office with my laptop staring at a brick wall, I might feel tired.
Yeah.
If I was doing work that isn't in alignment with my highest values, I would feel tired. But it's work that we love.
Yeah.
You know? So I love what you said though about spaciousness in your body. So if any woman was listening right now and she's hearing the conversation about embodiment, but she doesn't really know what we're meaning when we say embodiment. So then when you go ahead and say, I have spaciousness in my body for my life to feel spacious, if she's feeling confused about how she would create that within herself, what would you say?
First thing I would say is like you have to connect to the feeling part of you.
Yeah.
Because, and this is once again like that conversation was like, oh, I might feel tired or I might feel that. It's like tide's a word that we've used to describe something. It's like, what's actually the sensation that's happening in your body? Like, do you feel heavy? Do you feel constricted in some places? Does something want to move? Is something feeling blocked? Or like, and really connecting into that piece first, because without actually feeling your body, you can't really be in an embodiment practice. Like, there's no way for that. And I know for me at first, I would like, people were like, how are you feeling? And it was like straight to identify the emotion. It'd be like sad, or I'm feeling hurt, or I'm feeling angry. And it's like most of the time they were just like, you know, I feel like I've used the word gateway 5 million times this session already, but it was like, it was just like a part of me to go, yep, that I've got that bit now, I can label it off as something. And that's the mindset side of it, right? It's like, oh, she's feeling sad. Okay, cool. That's sadness. I was like, but actually, how do I work with sadness? And if we go into like, you know, Peter Levine's work, and, you know, we've studied this deeply in the trainings and that we're doing, it's like the reason why we hold on to like this emotion in our body and this feeling and sensation is because it actually hasn't had the full process of it. And so if you can't learn to actually feel that, you're never going to let that experience fully process through your body. And so that's what's going to hold on to. It's like people are sitting here going, I want more capacity to do things, and they think I've got to hold more and I've got to be more and I've got to da-da-da. It's like, actually, no, you just need to clear out more. Like, and so it's like, if you can't feel, you don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And so that would be the first thing I'd say. And then it's like really just listening into that. What does that want to do? Right. And so something that our mentors always say is like, you know, like give it a sound, give it a voice, give it something that is like, it actually
how does it want to move?
How does it want to move? And a lot of people, when you say that to them, they're like, what? Like, it's just there. And it's like, no, it's actually talking to you.
Yeah.
Your body's always talking. And for me, like, I sort of started in my like embodiment journey, I guess you could say, with like, you know, Louise Hay's books.
Yes, same.
Yeah. And like,
I used to fall asleep listening to her meditations, and my housemates would be like, why the fuck is an old lady talking to you as you fall asleep? I was like, I'm in a hard place in my life right now. Louise is the only one who gets me.
Totally. But like, I'd cut my finger and I'd be like, what's the spiritual meaning of cutting your finger? And I remember one day, one of my mentors, who is like, she is like a yoga therapist, as woo as they come, but also super grounded. Like, you know, and I remember I broke my ankle, and I was a personal trainer at the time. And so I'm running around the gym in my fucking scooter, like that you have when you break something. And I was like, oh, this is the spiritual meaning of this, and da-da-da-da. And then I burnt my hand, and that was the spiritual meaning of this. And she's like, you know, sometimes shit just happens. And I was like, huh? Like, and I'm thinking, her of all people to say that. But what it actually taught me was it happens because we don't pay attention to our body.
Yeah.
It happens because we're not listening to our body. And this is what happens all the time for us. Like the other day, I was driving with one of my clients in a VIP moment, VIP day. And anyway, a car had pulled out so fast in front of us. If I wasn't so connected to my body, it would have hit us. But I was like straight away, like body's on, like, you know, it knows what to do because it had the capacity for that. And so that's what I would say. It's just like, how much can you feel? And like really tapping in. And like, I know for me, and you know this personally, my greatest work has been my heart. Like, it's so easy for me to just put walls up, block the world out. Casey's the strong one. I've got it all together. But the more that I've actually allowed that wall to come down, the more I've connected into the rest of my body. And so it's been a journey. You've witnessed it firsthand. But it's really one of those of like, I personally believe now the bravest people learn to feel.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, you can't be soft without strength. You can't have that wisdom within your body without the deepest levels of trust that you have, because it's going to show you some things that you don't want to know.
Yeah.
And probably are too scared to accept.
Yeah. And I think for anyone listening, like, again, like, how long have you been on this journey to feeling?
To feeling.
And opening your heart
like,
to life and yourself.
The mindset journey started like maybe 10 years ago, but actual embodiment journey, like 6 years ago.
Yeah. And so for anyone listening, it really is a journey. You don't just say, I want to open my heart, and tomorrow, like, we can't predict when your heart's going to open and not, but don't let time be a contributing factor as to whether you do this work or not, because you still experience love even if your heart didn't feel truly open. You just experience a lot more love now.
Yeah.
You still experience results in your business when your heart didn't feel truly open, you didn't feel embodied, but you're feeling different results now. So you're still like, life is still going to happen and you get to go on your journey. And I just don't believe that we can force our way into embodiment. And I think we went through this on our podcast that we did over on my show. It's like, Casey sits here and I just yell at her, like, open your heart. And she's like, yeah, I want to. And I'm like, open your heart. And she's like, I don't know how to, but yeah, open my heart. Like we can't force what's not ready to open yet to open. We just can't. So it's going to be, it's like you're lovemaking and you're not turned on.
Yeah.
You can go grab some lube, some spit, you can shove something in. Doesn't, for some people maybe okay, like I've got the kind of body that can turn on pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But still, like when your body's a no, you can force something in there and the thing can be happening and it's just like, oh, this doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So there gets to be a process to like warming the body up and getting the body connected and having the body open to want to even receive the experience. Like we as people to our feelings are no different.
100%. And I think, you know, like I'd love to know your answer in this exact question as well, because I think so many women, they're like, if I just do the thing, like it won't matter how guarded I am or how disconnected I am.
Yeah.
But one thing that I know is like the more availability I have in my body, the more things happen just with ease.
Yeah.
Like I was even saying to Jay, one of our girlfriends, well, I was on the phone to her just before I got here and she's like, how are you like since the retreat and stuff? And I said, you know what? I'm so good. But the thing that I love the most is I'm just noticing how different my partner is. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, how's he different? And I was like, I think it's just because of my softness. But like even something as simple as like he would normally just be like, all right, babe, I'm going to go now on the phone. He was like, hey, babe, is this conversation going anywhere? And I'm like, oh, I'm just chatting. He's like, so just chit chat? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, do you mind if I go and we can talk about this when we get home? I was like, sure, go. The level of like, he's looking out for me because I've got my own heart more. Like it's like this beautiful thing that I'm seeing everywhere.
Yeah. A lot of women from the retreat have actually said that they're noticing their softening is softening their partner and they're experiencing more compassion for each other, which I feel is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Like, and you know, I think the thing for me too is like so much happened around the masculine in that retreat in terms of not just men and how they show up for us, but how we actually receive them.
Yeah.
Because I look at like money, men and God as the same thing, right? In terms of provision, in terms of our safety, in terms of how we actually allow ourselves just to breathe and be felt. And like I had this moment where I just checked my bank account the other day and I expected it to be really, really low because I hadn't done a money date for like 2.5 weeks and normally I'm weekly on it. And I knew I had a whole heap of expenses that had come out and I was expecting it to be way lower than it was because I knew that it was that time of the month where all my outgoings go out. And I'm like, it's actually way more in there than I anticipated. And I was just like, oh, right, because the availability is there again.
Yeah.
Like just these tiny little micro things that are happening that really keep opening up the more that I open.
Yeah, I mean, if a woman is wanting to embark on her embodiment journey, and it's okay, like it's just okay if you need to start in the mind. And if that's where you feel safest and it's mindset work to begin with, just starting doing the work, some work, any work is a beautiful place to start. Like we started with mindset work, NLP, landmark forums, seminars, money mindset workshops. That's where you and I began. And that was the birth of a really beautiful journey. And even one of my one-on-one clients, I gave her an embodiment like stretch about 3 days ago. And as I was communicating it to her and she responded and she's so open and available and ready for it, like 8 months ago, she would have been like, what the fuck have you just told me to go and do and I don't understand and there's no way. And so, yes, transformation takes time, but it also takes courage. And once you give it the time when you've got a mentor, got a leader, got a teacher that is taking you somewhere that they've gone to within themselves, the 6 years, you know, the 10 years of being in the work, 6 years of embodiment work, because you've already walked the path, not that I'm saying we want to short track and fast track to places, but when you've got someone that's already put the hard yards in and like dropped the ball and made all the mistakes and gone left and realized you should have gone right and then done another U-turn and all the things, it shortens your journey. That client the other day when I sent her that voice note, just to know that she was just such a yes to that kind of work. It was like, look at what you did for yourself in a short 8 months. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Hey, like I have so many of my clients that we don't really focus that much on strategy. Like we do, but we're focusing more on that, on like what's happening in the body. And I said to her, one of my other clients, I was like, she was going on about, she was about to sign another client. And I was like, and I just said to her, hold on a second. You realize you've made 6 figures in that particular offer. And this was like only 6 months that she'd been running something. And she was just like, holy, like, and I said, let your body feel that. Let your body actually feel that, because she was still getting caught up in the scarcity. I said, right now the scarcity is there because you're running from an old pattern. You haven't let your body sink into what's actually happening here. And as soon as she like just really landed in that, you felt her trust for herself really open up more. So like the reason why I'm opening that up with is because what I'd love to know is like, we see a lot of people, they do get quite successful things happening for them, but they don't know how to let their body land in it. They don't know how to like actually open it up, because it's like almost forbidden to celebrate yourself. It's almost forbidden to actually have that. And what I found is that that's the secret to having more of it. What would you say is the best way for someone to start to actually land in that space of being able to receive what they're doing?
I would receive something that I'm getting and just like be with, say after our embodiment training that night, a woman just signed up, paid in full to my retreat. Messaged me on Instagram that night, got on a call. She's like, I'm available now. I was like, you know what? I just sat down on the couch, but let's jump on a call and let's do it.
Yeah.
And then she signed up immediately. And so instead of being like, right, next retreat, sign up, can I just sit there and allow the experience to land of the ease of I've just spent 5 days in training with teachers and mentors and best friends and their clients and girlfriends and community. And can I breathe that in? And can I think about like, I'm in Austin, Texas, on the other side of the world to where I'm from. And years ago, I couldn't even afford to barely pay my rent. And now I travel the world. Can I just breathe that in? Like it's a random Monday night in Austin. I run a retreat in 3 weeks' time in Bali. And can I breathe that in? And can I think about why I created the retreat in the first place and the breakthroughs that these women are going to be able to have and the connection that I'm going to be able to experience with them and the facilitating with a new team member? Can I just like breathe that in? And that's like, oh, and this beautiful woman has signed up and invested, and her desire is, and whatever her intention she shared with me for attending, can I just like really be with that someone's invested with me to support them to change their life? Like this is going to be a ripple in their ocean that touches the rest of their life forever. And I have some part to do with that. And she trusts me with that. Can I like be with that honor for a moment? And then it's like, oh, and and she signed up, paid in full. And without needing more or another sign up or another client, can I just be like, oh, it's like, this is more than enough. Like, can I just celebrate this right now and be with that? And then from that, like, oh, and allow that. As I feel into all of those things, I can feel energy just like rising in my body. And as the energy rises up into my body, I can feel the energy like open up through my heart. And as I feel it open up through my heart, it feels like it expands out like a dome. And as it expands out through it like a dome, I can feel my shoulders go back. And I'm like, oh, now I'm filled with more energy. I'm like, oh, this feels really good. This feels, your client's word, expansive, but it's like the energy rising. So, oh, this feels so good to be with.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, tomorrow if I would like more signups to the retreat, great, let's fucking go. But can I just be with that in that moment and allow it to land? And even reminding myself like, Rebecca, you're doing so fucking great. And this is abundance. Abundance is already here. This is more than enough. And so much more is coming. And I'm fucking proud of you. And it's already here. Breathe it in. You've arrived. Like some kind of affirmative, like, allow it to be here without like scurrying and grabbing for the next.
Yeah, I love that. Like, and that's one of my big things that I always talk about as well, is like when I want more business or I want more clients to come in, I don't look outside of my business. I look inside it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how can I just pour into what I already have? How can I really like luxuriate in what I've built and what I've created and be so grateful for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the missing piece that a lot of people don't get. They're like, when I become this, then I'll have that. But that's still playing the outside in game. And this is something we talk about quite a lot, is like, it has to start here first.
Mm-hmm.
But I find so many women don't get that piece. Right. And they're like, oh, but, you know, I can't be like, oh, yeah, I've got a man, so that can't start internally. And like I often say in my relationship as well, it's like, you know, there are some things that I can do on my own, but there's some things I can't do on my own. So it's like, how do you personally differentiate between that, especially knowing that you're in the space where you're looking for your husband and like
he's looking for me. I'm
looking
available.
for you. You're available for your husband. Sorry.
He's going to find me.
I love the correction. But like, you know, there's so much that's happening in your world that's opening it right up. And it would be so easy to be like, oh, but I've got this, and getting caught up in the little things, or wanting more that might not be that, or like wanting the partner now and all those sorts of things. And, you know, if you don't mind me sharing, at the retreat the other night, you were like, you know, I know where my yes is, but I'm also okay if that's not it for them.
Yeah.
You know, how do you allow yourself to hold that with such integrity?
Well, and this brings up what I remembered I was going to speak into before.
Yeah.
I attracted my last partner from doing the mindset work.
Yeah.
And from doing, I'm like, you know, I don't love the term high value. I like purpose-driven, but being from a purpose-driven, intentional woman, who's attracting a purpose-driven, intentional man, I've done my values, I've done my standards, I know my desires, I know what I'm a yes to, I know what I'm a no to. And my last partner was so great, and he ticked a lot of that list. And we were having a surface level experience of each other. And I was trying to force depth and intimacy into a frequency of, I'm attracting you from my surface, and so what I'm getting is your surface, but my woman wants depth, but I'm not bringing my depth, and my woman wants intimacy, but I'm not intimately connected with myself. So I'm going to sit here and ask you to give me depth and give me intimacy, but my mind created all the result. He's like, I meet all your standards. I've read your list. I'm like doing all these things. I was like, I don't want a list, but I came to him with a list. I manifested him from a list. So now through doing the embodiment work, I have this lived experience of, well, mindset work created those results. I like to call them surface level results. And depth is truth, and depth is intimacy. Depth is, you know, my ex-partner is like, what is it that you like sexually? You must like to be like hung from the ceiling to have this wild, deep sex that you're talking about. I'm like, no, missionary can be this wild, crazy, mind-blowing sex, but it's not the physical thing that you're doing. You don't need to tie me up and shove a billion sex toys into me. It's like the most basic act can be so deep and powerful because it's so deeply felt.
Yeah.
And that to me is truth. Like, truth is truth. And I had an old spiritual teacher say to me, I remember crying about my ex-boyfriend, actually at the first bridge that I supported in America. We were going through kind of our separation. I knew it was time for me to break up with him, and I was crying at the back of the room. And she came over and she said, truth never dies. And if it's not truth, then there's nothing that you can do to force it to be truth. And it didn't it landed to the degree that it did until I've gone on this journey. And now I'm like, that is so true.
Yeah.
Like, if you're my partner and God put my name on your soul for wife, that's truth. There's nothing I can do to fuck it up, and there's nothing I can do to force it to be that if it's not that. It's like myself and my ex. We tried to force this. We wanted the surface to be the depths, and we were trying to force it to be, but we're just hanging on from attachment, and I know the pain of that. So now it's like, well, I created surface level results. I experienced the pain of detaching from that, you know, wounded inner child attachment bond that we had with each other. That was a hard process and separation process to go through. So now truth is truth, and I only want to live from that place. I don't want to attract the next guy from like, I'd like you to be my partner, but we both know we're not, but let's try and make it work. Like, truth is truth. And that to me is the greatest come from I could live from.
I love that so much. And I really resonate with that because, you know, my story when I first met Urbane, there was this whole like, it's just something.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, I didn't know what it was. It wasn't like oh my God, you light my fucking fire on, like, because we had that, but it wasn't like what you expect or what you see in the movies or anything like that. But there was just this depth of knowing that there's something here.
Yeah.
And that this man is mine. And whatever that means from here is just whatever that means.
Yeah.
And so I love that you actually acknowledge that in that, because I did the same thing. So many relationships, surface level. But what I'd love to talk about is like what actually happened when you acknowledge the truth for yourself there. Because as the outsider, I watched everything in your world expand. Like, you know, your business blew up. You started traveling the world. You started literally living every fantasy that you'd had.
Yeah.
And like, I knew those fantasies because we were girlfriends and you'd shared it with me. And now I'm like, I get the intricate details and I'm like, holy fuck, this woman's really like living it, you know? And so as the person who felt that in real time, how would you explain that to someone who's watching someone like you literally live the life of their dreams, having come from, is that ever going to be mine?
Yeah, I remember sitting in my office in Perth thinking I just couldn't really crack above $250,000, $280,000 in a year, which to some people sounds like great money. And to me, again, I was like, this is fucking surface level results. So I was like, okay, more hours, more reach outs, more emails, more programs, more offers, like very like do.
Yeah.
But then I'd walk out of my house, and I was fortunate enough to live in a really beautiful area. I live right across the road from the beach, and I basically live in a holiday destination in Perth, Western Australia. And I would walk out and I would see so much beauty, and I would get this hit of, I'm so fucking bored. I'm so bored. And then I would have sex with my partner and I'd have the same hit of like, that was the most boring orgasm ever. And it wasn't about him and it wasn't about his performance, because he was putting in like a 10 out of 10, like doing the thing. And I was like, this isn't it. And I didn't know that it was the depth until I knew it. And I realized like I have a life coaching business, coaching women in women's transformation. And now they're off living their big, beautiful lives, reflecting back to me that I'm the reason I'm not, but I supported them through coaching. They're like, you changed my life. I'm like, you changed your own life. But supporting them to blow their lives up. And I thought to myself, I'm the most incongruent life coach that you could ever come across. I'm sitting here in my office in Perth talking about living your fucking life whilst my clients are out living their lives from doing the work. I was like, babe, something's got to change. And so that's why I realized I think this ceiling that I know that I can smash through, but physically I'm feeling like I can't right now, that is embodiment. That's God saying, you don't live your life. So how the hell are you getting live your life results for clients if you're not out? Like I always say, I don't want to work with if I want a $10 million coaching business, I don't want to go to someone earning $10,500,000. I want to go to the person earning $100 million. I don't want you to be a little step ahead from me, be a huge step ahead from me. So I was like, you got to go live. You want the sex? Go get it. You want the money? Go live. You want the podcast? Get off fucking Zoom and Riverside and get in studio. Like more expenses, expand into it. And that's where I started dating with more confidence, creating wild sex stories, writing about them on the internet, following my muse. My sex stories have been the most viral posts I've ever put up because women are like, oh my God, did you actually have a sexual experience like that? And that's true. And then you write like that because it's truth. In this ChatGPT world, people are like, oh my God, another fucking post written by ChatGPT. And then I put up a real love story, a real sex story, and women are like, I have not had anything like that my whole life. That's embodiment. And that's when women are like, I'm signing up to your fucking retreat because I want elevator man sex. I'm signing up to your retreat because I want to go to my Brazilian jiu-jitsu class and roll around with my Brazilian jiu-jitsu trainer and then like have this wild sex night after. Women want that. We want to feel and we want to live, and we're bored of vanilla. And it's not the vanilla sex that the man's giving us. It's not the vanilla life that we live. It's the vanilla experience of ourselves. We're sick of it. And I just don't know any person. I do not know one person that was like, I took this courageous leap of faith and I regret ever having done it. I don't know one fucking person.
Yes.
Not one. So why would you not? There's always going to be a job that you can go and get. We're Western women in Western worlds. You're listening to a fucking podcast right now on a laptop or on an iPhone. you're never going to starve. You're never not going to have clothes to wear. Someone will give you food. Someone will say like, fuck, you got yourself into some real shit. Sleep in my spare room for a month. You're always going to be okay. But your dreams are like out there waiting for you to be like, where's your fucking bravery? Come get it. You want money? Be brave. You want wild sex? Leave the partner that you don't love. That's where the expansion comes.
Yeah. And I also want to add to this piece as well, because like the wild sex bit, like you want wild sex. It's like, if you don't want to leave your partner, learn yourself.
Yes.
Like, because that's been like something so deep, and everything that you're talking into is just like aliveness, like, you know, so deeply. And like, I'm sitting here like, yes, like,
I'm like, we're awake now.
It's like, oh, hello. But I think it's so incredibly true. And like, you know, even like, I think about a year back, I was saying to you, I'm like, there's just something that's like, you know, I want something more. And so I had to go through lose the weight, because that was my fucking thing that was holding me back. I was getting in the way. Like, I'm sitting here doing the same thing. I'm like, I'm wanting to tell everyone about embodiment and being that. And yet my body was storing all this weight.
Yeah.
I wasn't living it. I wasn't feeling it. And the minute I actually tapped into, okay, hold on, what's the body holding here? Like, I did my own work.
Well, and it'd be easy for you to point at Urbane and be like, you're not giving me the sex.
100%.
This relationship isn't doing it for me. But even I was having a conversation about this with someone yesterday. It's like, if I'm in partnership with someone and this is a beautiful marriage, and she's like, we've had the vanilla sex experience. It'd be easy to be like, you're the problem. But we know how to turn ourselves on. I could go back to my ex-boyfriend now.
Yeah.
And it would be a whole different experience. Now, my aliveness might not match his aliveness, and so we could try and he'd be like, it would not work.
Yeah.
But if I'd done the work on my depth and at the same time he was doing it too, boom, it could be an entirely different experience.
100%. I even think back to like the start of our relationship to where we are now. Like, I love when people go, oh, you know, you get married, you have kids and the sex dies off. I have a completely different story around that. Like, because we've done so much work through this, and like every time I've like craved more because my feminine's opened up more, right? Every time I've wanted something more, it's like, okay, cool. We get to work on this together. We get to open this up together, and the sex gets better.
Yeah.
Every time I have a more, I honor it, I listen to it, sex gets better. Every time I have a more, I honor it, I listen to it, I make more money. Every time I have something where my body is nudging at something and I actually listen to what's going on, something else opens up in my world.
Even TMI, my own self-pleasure practice, my orgasms are like, what on God's good earth is happening to me right now? This is amazing. And it's like, wow, because I am feeling so deeply in my body, I can have this beautiful practice, which is like, this is mind-blowing sex.
Yeah.
So of course now my standard for sex, like before, my self-pleasure orgasm would have been a surface level orgasm. Like, oh yeah, orgasm, that was nice.
Yeah.
But now the depth that I can feel means that the pleasure is so expansive and it fills up my entire body, and I have the capacity to hold more pleasure, which also means my standard for relationship and relating is so much different. And when he experiences me, like even the man that, you know, I'm about to go and pour my heart out to in Bali, when we were intimate together, he was like, oh my God, like the intimacy was so deep and it was so something that I hadn't experienced before. And I'm like, oh wow, the depth that I can feel in myself, he can feel it within himself. And this is a beautiful dance between the two of us. And that's why we're both like, oh my God, I've never experienced this level of intimacy with someone before. And it's not tying yourself up against a wall and having 10,000 crystal dildos shoved into you. It can be the most simple thing, and it's just so deeply powerful because it's so deeply felt.
I love that so much, because one of the things I also hear from a lot of women who they start to do the work, they're like, oh, I'm so sensitive now. I feel like I can't be around that person and I can't be around this. And it's like, yeah, you are. And that's actually a really great thing because you're feeling.
Yeah.
And that means if you're sensitive around the bad stuff, guess how sensitive you are for the good stuff now?
Yeah.
Like you can feel it all.
Yeah.
It's like your body, like once it's on, everything touches you.
And you get to have boundaries. I want to call a little bit of bullshit on like, I feel an empath and I feel everyone's stuff. And people say to me all the time, surely your work must drain you listening to everyone tell you about their lives. And I'm like, no, my work gives me life. Like listen to how I got so full of life just then. Like what excites me and this work excites me. and I have fucking boundaries.
Yeah.
So if you're a highly sensitive person, or I'm a sensitive, like my emotions, I'm a sensitive person. That's why I got such a bad bitch bloody thing around me that I had going on for so many years. Sensitive, but like boundaried.
Yeah.
Containment, masculine, like what we were teaching and doing on the weekend. Have your own masculine containment so that you've got yourself.
Yeah, I was talking about this with a girlfriend as well, because like a lot of people who are the empaths and who are the listeners and they have all the people offload on them.
Yeah.
And someone's like, oh, how do you deal with that? And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
People don't come to me and gossip. They don't come to me and offload. They don't come to me and just drop things on me.
Yeah.
Unless it's someone who is in my inner circle, and how they do it is a different place. Like, you know, if you're calling to me because like there's something going down and you need support, you're not being like, oh, my life is so shit and da-da-da. You're like, right now I'm dealing with this. What do I do? Like, it's different. It's like I'm actually coming to lift myself up, not to drag you down with me.
And there's also a request. Like if I was to call Case and be in something, it would typically sound something like, I'm in something right now. Do you have space to support me?
Yeah. 100%.
And then right now she knows like, actually, my toddler is having a fucking fit. I haven't spent time with my partner in 5 days because I've been in training. I've been podcasting all day. I'm going to have to connect with you in like a couple of days' time. Like I'm not the person to be your support network right now.
Yeah.
And that would be totally okay.
Yeah.
And if I bring it to her, you know, we were even having this conversation this morning about people who bring things to us, and when we're not available for it, you said to me, you turn around and say, I'm actually not available for this. And it doesn't have to be some big fucking thing. It's just like, I get to have boundaries, and you, like, just because you're a no to someone doesn't mean that you don't like them, you don't love them. Casey could want to support me and be like, right now is actually the most inconvenient time. Like I've had someone recently who isn't a close person in my network or my circle, but they've relied on me. Yeah. They've had someone major pass away in their life. But at the same time, I've had really important people in my life go through really big things. And so he is trying to reach out to me to be his support network. And I've had to share, like, as much as I would love to, and I care for you deeply, and I have so much compassion for what you're navigating right now, I'm stretched so far in terms of what I'm doing in my life. I'm flying back to Bali this week, and I have people in my personal life really needing me to be there for you, so I can't be your main pillar of support. Yeah. So can I know that you've got 3 other people to reach out to, because I can't be that person right now? And like, I can feel like a little bit of an asshole, but
that's done with so much love. Yeah. And this is where I think the embodiment piece is so important, because the mindset, you'd be in your fucking head with that shit. Yeah. Like, oh my God, have I showed up for them? Have I done the right thing? Whereas the body knows its capacity. It's like if you weren't so embodied and you didn't know what you were available for, you probably would have overstretched, overgiven, sat in resentment, and then been like, fucking, where's everyone when I need support? Yeah. And how many times do we have that conversation with people of like, I'm the martyr who overgives to everyone, then I don't get it when I desire it. I was talking to a client literally like last night about this exact thing. And I was like, you first. That was the conversation. Like, everything's about you. When your muse is on, when your aliveness is on, everything else will work because you're actually available then.
Yeah, I've actually witnessed this quite a lot in the past. I've seen a pattern in women in my life be like, I do so much for people, but I don't get in return. Yeah. And I'm exhausted by this. Why aren't people giving to me? And it's like, if you get to look at where you're giving from. Like, I don't want to be overly given to from an unclean place.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, you give a lot to me, but it never feels unclean. It never feels like I'm doing it so that later on Bek gives something back, or I'm like over providing because it makes me feel valuable. Yeah, she just texts me as she brings me lingerie to our embodiment. Like, my fiance is cooking a steak. What sides would you like? But it feels clean. Yeah. And I can tell the difference between someone who gives from a clean place and someone who gives to get, and someone who gives with a little note in the back of their mind of, I want to get back later. Yeah. And that doesn't feel good to be on the receiving end of. And then to have an expectation that you'll be given as soon as if you ask for something, people can't always be a yes to you. Yeah. And sometimes their no is so honoring for themselves, and it doesn't mean anything about you. Yeah. And so I've just noticed this, like, and it's probably a reflection of where I've done this in my own business. Like my business coach said to me the other day, if you want to grow to where you want to grow to, you got to stop doing everything yourself, right? And I was like, no, I've got team. I don't do everything myself. And they were like, yeah, you've kind of convinced yourself that you don't do everything yourself and you're not a micromanager and everyone's autonomous, but you've still got your hands on too much stuff to grow to where you want to grow, and you'll never get there doing it the way that you're doing it. And I was like,
that's like, I had I don't know if I actually shared this with you over the weekend, but one of my biggest takeaways from the weekend was like, I've got so much support. Like I've set it up everywhere, but I don't use it.
yeah,
I'm like, staff member here, team here, Abane, can you do this for me? Da, da, da. And then when it comes time to actually utilize the support, I'm like, I got it.
yeah,
Like most of the time I'm pretty good, but when the nervous system's up, I default to the old pattern of Miss Independent, I can do it. And I was like, oh, fuck.
yeah.
That like was a huge shift for me.
My business coach said it to me last week. He turned to his wife and said, Beck says she's ready for her husband. Where's she going to have time for him if she keeps living her life like this?
Mm.
And then they both turned around and said to me, you think that you have so much team doing all the stuff, but you're convincing yourself that they're doing it all. Yeah. They're doing some stuff, but your hands are on too much stuff. And that was even, to make this relevant to what we're saying, that then creates a resentment in me of like, oh, I do so much and like, where's my support? But the support is actually there, and we as women get to learn how to ask for it. And we also get to break through this like, I can do it better myself mentality. Yeah. Trust that maybe it won't be done at the 100,000% that Bek Antonucci can do it, but it'll still be done great. And I can teach, I can lead, I can mentor, I can coach. I mean, that's what my business is, right? And eventually it can get to a place where I have full trust that even if it's not done the exact way that Bek Antonucci would do it, it can be done in a different flavor. And ultimately I can be left feeling supported versus being the resentful woman that's tired, burned out, drained, exhausted, and lacks creativity because I'm doing it all.
I love that so much. But these are like tiny little nuances that no one talks about in the embodiment journey, right? It's like, even that capacity conversation of like, I just need to empty out more. One of my things that I would default to was like, I'd empty out more, so I'd just take it back on again.
Yeah.
And so it was like, no, you have to empty out and then hold the boundary. You have to empty out and then go, okay, cool. Now I get to honor why I had to empty out in the first place.
Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of people don't do it. And I did this in my relationship quite a lot. You've watched this journey where it was like, I'd be overgiving, or I'd not ask for support, or I'd not expect him to pay for things. And I'd just keep paying and paying and paying and paying. And then he'd go like, oh, I need this or I need that. Boom, resentment would hit. So I'd go and I'd do the anger release. I'd do the embodiment work to get it out of my body, but only repeat the same pattern. So it was like, part of the embodiment journey is, yes, the feeling, but I'd almost say this is like the piece like that's the, how do you put it? Like the solidifier is like, you have to then know what it feels like from a practice place in the body to have the boundary held. Because that's where I feel like a lot of people slip up. And it's the same thing with me, like set up the support, but don't actually use it. It's like, I'll say the boundary, but I won't actually like stand in it when it's required. Like that's what solidifies you as a woman. I personally believe it's like, people be like, oh, I have a boundary. Don't ever cheat on me. Partner cheats, they forgive. And it's like, well, you didn't actually honor the boundary. It's like, if that's really a non-negotiable, that means he's out the door.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're like, why is he treating me like shit? It's like, well, firstly, you didn't honor your first boundary. Yeah. So you set yourself up for failure over and over again. But we're doing this in so many little micro moments in our business, in like our friendship groups, in all these other places. May not be as extravagant as cheating. Yeah. But we're cheating ourselves every time we self-abandon them.
I mean, I can tell a simple story about this. My ex-partner, he was going through financial hardship. I was providing for a lot. It's not a value of mine to provide. So that was already a betrayal and an abandonment of self just in that place.
Yeah.
And it was coming from, well, I earn good money. I earn more money than him. So I should just, if I want to go for a nice dinner, I should just pay for it because he's really not in a position to. And I did this every time I paid for something, it just wouldn't feel good for me because it wasn't coming from a clean place. Yeah. I also don't have a value for spending money on alcohol. It's a thing that I don't like doing. Yeah. And he liked drinking. And so when we drive and if we were off on the way to somewhere, he'd stop at the shops and get a 4-pack of his favorite drinks. And immediately I would feel so triggered that I would think of everything that I'd paid for the past week and see that he could still find, and it would only be like $30 for a 4-pack. He'd still find $30 for that 4-pack of alcohol because paying for alcohol doesn't align with my values. And I felt disrespected in that moment that he'd find $30 for himself but not to do something nice for me, like get me a pink rose. And I was even more pissed off that when he'd walk in, he didn't even come out with, I love sparkling water. Okay, baby, I know you don't drink, but here's a sparkling water for you. And so all of these triggers were building. But not once did I say to him until the explosion happened. I pushed it all away. Not once did I say to him, hey, me paying for everything is creating a lot of fear for my inner child around money and that there's not going to be enough or that I can't trust you to provide for our family. I never once said to him, I don't have a value for alcohol and you buying it in front of me. I know that you're not saying I'm disrespecting you, but this is the story that I'm creating, that I'm being really disrespected in this moment. And I would really love if you're going to still choose it because you're your own sovereign person. It would mean a lot to me that you came back with something little for me, like a fucking bottle of sparkling water. I did not say any of those things. So every time it happened, which was every single week, all of this resentment built within. And I know that might sound like a simple story, but you can grab that story and apply it to your life and realize why things aren't working because you're suppressed. Every time the trigger hits, you're not doing anything with it. You're pushing it down. You're not giving yourself permission to use your voice. You're not being vulnerable and you're not asking for your needs to be met.
Yeah.
And if you could just see, like, that created a huge eruption in our relationship eventually, because when it came out as a huge lash out because there was so much. Imagine a beach ball being pushed underwater and pushing it down. Eventually, when I finally let it rip, this shit just flew out everywhere and came out at him, and I shamed him and I put him down, and it wasn't the healthiest conversation. Because I wasn't honoring the entire time. Every moment there was an opportunity to speak up and advocate, I didn't.
Yeah. But it's so true though, because this is where a lot of women do. I've done this in my relationship too.
Yeah.
And this has been one of our biggest things that we've had to work on is like, you know, where's the line?
Yeah.
Where do we listen to our body? When do we action the no instead of sitting there going, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like even this week I had to be like, actually, that's a no for me.
Yeah.
Like my partner was like, oh, I hope you don't plan on wearing that outside. Like it was a lingerie piece. And I was like, at first I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then I was like, actually, what if I did want to wear it outside? And it was just those tiny little moments of like self-advocation where we really stand in our power and we pull it back in.
Yeah.
And so I want to wrap this up by saying like the embodiment journey isn't just about the feeling and all those sorts of things. It's like, who do you be when the stress is on?
Yeah.
And what do you create? How would you, if you were to say like, one little thing, one major piece that you've taken away from like actually stepping into this journey, how would you describe it in a way where someone would be like, oh, that actually like, okay, let me word that again in a way that actually makes sense. What's been your biggest learning for yourself as a woman actually applying this in your world?
Well, my biggest learning would be I lived 12 years in protection and a guarded heart, and that felt very surface level and unfulfilling. And even the results that looked like results to other people didn't feel like results. Yeah. And being brave enough to do the work, to live from an open heart and to think, I'm going to go back to Bali this week and literally pour my heart out to this beautiful man and tell him the truth about my feelings. Just because I deserve to. Yeah. Just because whether it's him or it's not, I deserve to. And my daughter deserves me to. And I would want my daughter to put her heart from boundaries, but like I would love for her to live from her heart as well. Yeah. And to feel the excitement and the lightness and the like, oh, I actually have myself so much that I could just be so vulnerable with someone and know that I'm good no matter what, because my truth is my truth is my truth, and his truth is his truth, and Casey's truth is Casey's truth. And if I can't force your truth to be what I want your truth to be, your truth is just your truth. And to know that I just feel that so deeply within, it's like, oh, what is possible for life now? Like if living my life in protection created a freedom lifestyle, and last year I think I did over $500,000 and 800 and something thousand gross income year. If hustle and protection created that, imagine what an open, unguarded, like expansive, heart on the line woman could create for herself. Like that to me is like, let's fucking go. Like that, like that's so exciting. So risk it for the biscuit, but it's going to be worth it for the reward.
Love. All right. I'm conscious of time. We have already gone over. And any final words for our listeners today?
Just that your dreams are waiting for you. And if you jump, I don't know any single woman in all the world in all of my world that has ever said I jumped and the net didn't appear.
Oh, so true. So I've got like a million stories of where I've jumped and then suddenly it's like, oh, here we are.
Don't start the podcast again.
No, I'm not. I'm not. You know I could. But thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure, darling.
We started slow today, but
Finish fast.
finished fast.
Finish on fire.
Finished on fire. I love you so much and thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you for having me.
Embodied.